Welcome to Confidently Buying Property in France. I'm Romain Poirot, managing partner at Frenchly Media. If you're new to us, Frenchly is the premier English language publication for Americans passionate about French culture, offering insights into French news, lifestyle, travel, and today, real estate. Today's session features experts from Blue Sky Finance and Aura Immobilier, which is real estate. They will share practical strategies to invest in French real estate or finding your pied-à-terre in France. If you have questions, we're going to answer all your questions directly today. So we'll have a short, brief presentation, but if you ask any questions, we'll stop the presentation and we'll answer your question directly. We're also live on LinkedIn, so feel free to ask any question on LinkedIn and we'll answer. And we're also live on YouTube. So if you have any questions on YouTube, feel free to ask your question. All of this is recorded, so don't be afraid. If you miss any information, you can watch it again. Anaïs will share her screen right now, and I will let you also start this brief presentation. Hi, Anaïs. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Romain. And here is the presentation. Hi, everyone. I'm Anaïs, and as Romain said, I'm the founder of Aura Real Estate Agency, Aura Immobilier, and I'm going to show you and explain to you how you can purchase a property as an international buyer. But first of all, I'm going to present you the team of Aura. This is the team that makes it happen. So as I said, I'm Anaïs and I'm the founder. I created Aura over 2 years ago, and I wanted to offer a more personal, thoughtful approach to real estate. And then you have Charlotte, who is the real estate agent in Lyon, and Grégoire, who is the real estate agent in French Riviera. And I did not mention, but I'm specialized in Paris and Lyon real estate markets. And about the team, we are a little bit different from the other agencies. We offer a more holistic vision, and we want to support you not only through real estate, but also through renovation, and we offer this service as well. We value human vision and connection above all, and your story is important to us. It inspires us and it drives us. We are a small structure, and it allows us to propose to you a tailor-made support and, of course, a human approach. And, of course, we are transparent. You can find us in Paris, which is the capital of France, of course, Lyon, the second biggest city in France, and the French Riviera. I'm sure you've heard of it, but to tell you a few examples of cities there, we have Cannes, where we had the festival, movie festival a few days ago, Nice and Saint-Tropez, and a lot of things over. A few words about who we are and how we work, because we are a bit different from the other agencies, but not only with our values, as I mentioned, but also with the way we work. So what sets us apart is that we are different from the other agencies. You have to know that in France, the majority of French real estate agencies represent sellers through listing agreements. When you're a buyer, you're usually shown only the current listing, and they don't actively search for properties tailored to your needs. And I know that this is different from the market in real estate in the United States. And Aura loves everyone, and that's what makes us unique. We work with sellers and buyers. We offer services to both, and we have a dedicated approach for each, a sales service and a seller for sellers, and an approach for property service for the buyers. Each is normalized and formalized through a specific agreement. For the sellers, it's the sales mandate, and for the buyers, it's a property search mandate. That's a little QR code for you to reach us. That was the advertisement. And about the buying process, because this is why you're here. When we found the perfect home for you, you're going to have to make an offer. And of course, we are going to negotiate the offer for you and advise you for the offer. And when it's accepted by the sellers, we're going to have to make an appointment at the notary office to sign the compromis de vente, which is a preliminary contract. And then we're going to have a delay of 2 to 3 months. And meanwhile, you will have to transfer the deposit. And when it's done, we're going to go back to the notary office and sign the final contract. If you only want to buy a place, this is the moment when you became the owner of the place and you get the key back. And if you want to renovate the place, well, you're just going to have to wait until the place is renovated. But in any way, you became the owner of the place at the end of the final signature. Little bit of word and focus about the paperwork and legal matters, because as I said, real estate in France is heavily regulated, and it starts with our profession, because not everyone can represent the clients in a sales or acquisition project, and we have to obtain a certification regulated by the state. As I said earlier also, we're going to have to sign the compromis de vente and the final signature at the notary, which bring a safety to the market in France. And of course, this is an obligation. And the last one is the real estate mandate, as I already mentioned. And this is the mandate that allows us to represent the clients. And also, this is the mandate that allows the client to finance the fees through their lending institution. About the timeline, we're going to start the acquisition timeline. We're going to start with the initial discussion where you're going to explain to us what you want to buy, where you want to buy, and how much do you have as a budget. And if it's possible, we're going to advise you about your project and then sign the buyer's mandate. Next comes the search and viewing phase, where we actively look for properties and explore all possible opportunities. It takes over 0 to 2 months. Then comes the negotiation and offer. And we truly advise you, this is the phase where we're going to advise, and based on the strength of your profile and the reality of the market and the place, of course. Then comes the administrative and legal phase. And as I said, it takes about 3 months between the compromis de vente and the final signature. During this phase, we're going to guide you step by step, explaining to you every stage clearly and make sure that you fully understand. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, either our work comes to an end or you decided to renovate the place, and this phase takes 1 to 6 months. And then to finally end with the fun part, we have some examples of properties acquired through Aura. We start with Paris. The first one is the Projet Martyr. It was a pied-à-terre that a foreign wanted to buy in Paris in the 8th district. We managed to negotiate 150,000 euros on the asking price, and it took 3 weeks to find the right property. Then the Projet Pereire, it was an acquisition of a primary residence with renovation, and we managed to negotiate 170,000 euros about the asking price. On the French Riviera, we had the luck to drive a client through the magnificent acquisition of a luxury second home at Grimaud, which is near from Saint-Tropez. and we negotiated 150,000 euro on the asking price. And to end in Lyon, we start with the Projet Molière, and this is a place where we had a renovation step. So I'm going to explain to you everything that we've done in the place with before and after. The first thing that we did is that we moved the former kitchen and we created a master bedroom instead. And then this is the living room where we repainted the whole apartment. And this is the other side of the living room. We opened this little side that was closed, and we moved the kitchen, the new kitchen here, so that the place were transformed. It was a 2-bedroom, and it was transformed as a 3 bedrooms. And this is the vintage bathroom that we replaced with a new one, and the kids' room. And then the Projet Claude, it was the same kind of project. It was an acquisition for a primary residence with renovation. And I'm going to show you again with the before and after what we did. But in both of the projects, we renovated the whole places. We did the same thing. We moved the former kitchen into the living room, and we evaluated the place that was the 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. And this is the vintage bathroom again that we changed to a modern and more beautiful. I hope you agree with me.
I do.
Thank you. And to show you, we repainted the whole place and we changed all the floors. Thank you for listening. This is our contacts and the QR code for the website and the WhatsApp. You can feel free if you have any question, and we'll be, of course, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Anaïs. We're lucky to have the direct contact. I'll put also her contact in the chat and on YouTube. In the description, we'll also have a link to her Calendly if you're watching this as a replay. Amaury, do you want to also tell us about how we can finance our beautiful pied-à-terre or investment in Paris, Lyon, maybe the French Riviera?
Sure, Romain, I'd love to do that. So really excited to be here in any case. I mean, I certainly don't have as many pretty pictures as Anaïs, but I'll try to do my best to tell you about how to make it all happen. And what that means is I'm going to talk to you about how to finance your French property investment as an international buyer. And as you know, I don't want to spoil the fun, but the good news is it is possible as an international buyer, as a non-resident, to borrow in euros to finance the purchase of a French real estate asset. And that carries quite a few benefits, which I'm going to talk to you about over the next few slides. And you know, by all means, you know, this is, you know, I have a few pretty pictures, but you know, just step in and ask any questions you may have. Feel free to interrupt. So just a few words about who we are and who I am. So my first name is Amaury. I am the principal of a firm which is called Blue Sky Finance, and we are a regulated and licensed mortgage intermediary, authorized to arrange loan and insurance contracts in France. The business has been trading since 2014. But personally, I've been in the industry, in the mortgage industry, in the international mortgage industry since the mid-90s. We're a boutique firm, so it's 5 of us, and we all, you know, speak English and several languages. and work with French expats, US buyers, UK buyers to finance the purchase of real estate assets in France. We work with a fairly large panel of banks and lenders across France and Europe. So we can, we can certainly tap into a wide pool of lenders who can potentially finance properties in France. Before we dive into interest rates and mortgage programs, I just wanted to say a few words about the housing market in France as it currently stands in May 2025. Now, there are a few numbers on this slide, but essentially what it says is that across the country, across France, real estate prices have gone up by 25%. That's what you can see at the bottom here in the past 10 years. And you'll find exactly the same number in the past 5 years. So basically, in the past 5 years, prices have gone up by 10%. But obviously, it's not one market; it's several markets. And as you'll see here, Paris has suffered from a correction in the past 5 years, although the increase in prices has been significant since the index started in 2008. The good news is, since the second half of 2024, the market, especially in large cities such as Paris, Toulouse, Nice, Lyon, is showing quite a positive momentum. So, for example, what you're seeing here, this is basically the price increase. I mean, it's fairly small, but still, it's only over a 1 month period. So, what this says is that prices have gone up pretty much across the board in the past, quarter. So the market is showing good, strong momentum, essentially on the back of falling interest rates, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But what we're seeing overall is that there is a strong momentum. Properties, the real estate market in France is highly liquid, especially in urban areas, which basically means that there is strong demand. So whenever you want to sell or exit the market, there are opportunities to sell your asset. What this means too, one of the takeaways is that, as I said, it's a story of many markets, and as Anaïs indicated earlier, there are sometimes significant opportunities to negotiate prices at when you're in the market. So it's not unusual to negotiate prices by 5, 10, 15% down versus asking price, and it does take an expert and market knowledge to know how far you can push to get to the right price. Finally, the last point I would make on this slide is that the market is liquid, both to enter and exit the market. And one of the benefits of the French real estate market, and certainly contrary to other jurisdictions like in the UK, Canada, Australia, is that in France, there is no differentiation, there is no discrimination against international buyers. So basically, there are no barriers to entry, so no additional fees or taxes, stamp duties if you're buying properties as a non-French resident, which is certainly not the case in places like the UK or Canada or Australia, where there are both quotas and certainly additional taxes applicable to international buyers. If we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to say a few words about basically the benefits of borrowing in euros. So if you're in the market and contemplating buying a property in France, very often we come across clients or prospects who could very much afford to pay cash. However, when planning your venture, it does make sense to explore options to raise capital in euros. Some of the benefits are listed here, but basically, at the risk of stating the obvious, it unlocks your purchasing power. So in other words, it makes your dollars or pounds go further if you can raise finance in euros. Second point is probably one of the key ones, and just to jump to the obvious, we are cheap. So if you look at a very simple indicator, which is interest rates, the latest statistic which recently came out for the month of March 2025 shows that the average interest rates of French mortgages originated during the month of March 2025 stood at 3.05%. Obviously, these are rates applicable to domestic buyers, and sometimes that includes incentives which are made available by the French state. But in any case, even if you look at other European countries, interest rates are significantly lower than where they are certainly in the US. I was just looking at the average 30-year home loan right now, and it's just a notch below 7%, whereas in France it's at 3.05%. So it doesn't take much to work out that money is cheap. So it makes plenty of sense to use other people's money to finance your purchase. And as you'll see here from this graph, which goes back to its kind of historical trend back to 2010. The gap between US and French home loans is actually getting wider. It's all to do with monetary policies. I'm not going to get into that, but definitely worth borrowing in euros and keeping your dollars, even if you invest them in a safe CD. I think the average yield you can get on a 12-month CD is around 4.3, 4.5%. So basically, it's a no-brainer. So it's an arbitrage. It's a personal balance sheet arbitrage. Borrow in euros and keep your dollars. Another sort of benefit is that even if your investment portfolio has done well, you may be looking at taxes on cap gains if you sell. So again, it makes sense to borrow in euros. The point about French wealth tax is specific to the French real estate market. So overall, the carrying cost in France of real estate assets is fairly low. However, you may be exposed to wealth tax if the value of your net equity is greater than 1.3 million euros. And one of the ways to minimize the equity that you hold in France, it's only applicable if you have properties in France, is to carry some debt against the property. So again, borrowing in euros and having a loan purpose to finance a real estate acquisition is a very compliant and sure way of avoiding any potential wealth tax exposure. Similar, there are some French benefits in carrying some debt to minimize, long-term inheritance tax. That's a fairly specialist area, so worth talking to a specialist or a notary, but certainly there are benefits. And the last point, and that's an interesting one too. For all customers who are in the market know very well that there are huge FX variations. So over the past 20-25 years, there's been huge swings in the exchange, in the euro to dollar or euro to sterling exchange rate. And basically, if you borrow in euros, nothing stops you from repaying the debt, be it in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, when the US dollar or the currency you're paid in is stronger against the euro. There are no early repayment fees. So again, to manage the currency risk exposure, carrying some debt in euros does make sense. That being said, that's the 2-second WhatsApp commercial. So if you want to get in touch, you just need to zoom in on the QR code, and you'll find us on WhatsApp. That being said, so you're in the market, you found the perfect place in Paris or elsewhere. What is available from a lending proposition? So what sort of mortgage programs are available if you want to borrow as an international buyer? Well, firstly, what you need to understand is that loans are denominated in euros. So you borrow in euros, and you service the loan in euros. So what that means is that you will need to pay the interest and the principal from a French or euro, a SEPA, a single European payment area checking account. And typically that happens automatically on a monthly basis. So there is an automated process by direct debit whereby you repay the principal and interest, typically monthly. From a collateral standpoint, typically the euro-denominated mortgage loans is secured against the French property. So it is the role of the notary to register the mortgage lien, and that happens when you close. Typically in the French mortgage market, interest rates are fixed for the entire duration. So it's actually the bank, the lender, that underwrites the risk of potential interest rate increases, but not the borrower. Typically, mortgage loans come in the form of principal and interest notes, and the maximum amortization period is 25 years. So 30 years, unfortunately, is not a proposition. The longest duration that mortgages can be amortized over is 25 years. Very important point: loan to value. So how much can you borrow against to finance the purchase? It's not an exact science. It will depend on a number of criteria. The key criteria being the property location, the country you live in, and to a lesser extent your citizenship. So it's a little bit easier if you carry a French passport. If you're a US buyer residing in the US, earning in US dollars, typically in places like Lyon, Paris, Toulouse, Nice, the French Riviera, you will be able to borrow up to 75% of the purchase price, which means that you need to put down 25% of equity plus closing fees. Closing fees is essentially taxes and legal fees, origination fees, as a proxy 10% of the purchase price. Interest rates again. The range right now depends on the number of driver, lender, duration, loan amount. What we're seeing in the market right now, the range you can, the pricing range is between low 3.3 to 4.1%, and that's kind of what we're seeing in May. One thing which is worth bearing in mind is that if for some reasons you have not been able to arrange a mortgage facility at the time of purchase, you always have a window post-closing to borrow in euros, and typically you have a 12 months window, so it's called a delayed financing facility, to arrange a mortgage and borrow in euros, and the tax benefits which we discussed earlier would be exactly the same. What does it take to qualify? It does take a lot of documentation, but in the end, we get there. But before I run through the list, I guess the point I would make is that it's clearly not the purpose of this webinar to discuss underwriting policies and lending policies. What I would say, though, it's extremely important to be pre-qualified before you search the market. So never assume that because you would be eligible or pre-qualified in your home market that would work in France. Rules are different, processes are different, the regulation is different. So my key advice would be, get pre-qualified before, at the very onset, at the very start of your project. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't require much time and effort, but at least you'll know exactly where you stand. From a practical standpoint, as you'll see here, what does it take to qualify? Well, it basically takes a stable income. One of the reasons why is that the French mortgage market is heavily regulated, and the regulator imposes that lenders abide by some affordability criteria, and the debt to income ratio must always be below 35%. Worth bearing in mind that all individuals who purchase, who end up on the title, must be joint borrowers. Age is an important factor. The maximum age, typically at the end of the amortization period, so at the end of the contractual term, typically it can't exceed 75 or 80. So it's fine to borrow up to the age of 65. It can get a bit tricky if you're over the age of 65. Your down payment must be available, and you must be able to evidence it. So in other words, if you need 25% of equity plus closing fees, you must have this the funds available in a saving account, in an investment account. Otherwise, it will be a struggle to qualify for a mortgage. It's a fully documented underwriting process, so basically everything must be evidenced, and typically the final sort of approval is subject to an independent appraisal, which is which kind of makes it safer, and that kind of ensures that you're paying the right price, and that there is no disconnect between how much you're paying and the actual market market price. One of the most popular, there are two very popular questions that we get from prospects on a regular basis: how much does it cost, and how long does it take? So we've kind of discussed the pricing aspect. The kind of how long does it take? Well, this slide aims to answer the question, but basically, remember one thing: it takes longer than what you may be used to in your home market. Reason being, it's quite bureaucratic. It's a regulated market. There are a number of cooling off periods. There are a significant number of stakeholders who are involved. So standard timelines, 2 to 3 months to originate a mortgage. It doesn't mean that it takes 2 months to obtain an appraisal. That's much faster. But to undertake all the steps, the pre-legals, the cooling off periods, that's a minimum of 2 months. So it may seem like a long time, but worth bearing in mind that stakeholders are used to those timelines. So sellers would expect that. Estate agents, realtors should know that. Your notaries as well. But in the end, just as the Guinness ad says, or used to say, good things come to those who wait. Another WhatsApp commercial, so that's how you can get in touch with us. And just to last slides, just to show you a few case studies that were recently arranged. So this one is basically, that's fairly similar. That wasn't Anaïs clients, but it's a fairly similar one. So it was a purchase in Paris for a 1-bedroom apartment, very, very good location in the 6, left bank. Purchase price was just a notch over 1 million euros. The client was, our clients were able to, were American buyers, by the way, early 60s. The lady was retired, and the husband was a cardiologist. They were able to borrow 75% of the purchase price. They put down 365,000 euros, including to cover all upfront fees. And they borrowed over a 15-year period at a fixed interest rate of 3.95%. So they landed with monthly payments of 5,915 euros. Another recent one that was this one is in Cannes. It was actually a lovely couple from living in Ireland. So they bought a small apartment in Cannes for 250,000 euros. We sourced a mortgage for 70% of the purchase price, so it was a fairly small loan amount of 175,000 euros at actually good terms, interest rates of fixed for 15 years, 3.4%. And they landed with monthly payments of 1,245 euros. Another one that was in the French Alps. This one is a bit. It's a little bit. I would say more complicated, but it took a bit more engineering. It was basically a new built chalet, which was purchased through a company, a French style. Because the clients wanted to recoup the VAT, which is applicable when you buy and let new build properties. So it was a very nice chalet, which was going to be let during the ski season. So here we arranged a 70% again loan to value loan. With a multiple drawdown facility, which took them through the construction phase. And the very last one, different structuring for a US family who bought together, so parents and children, adult children living in the Bay Area. They bought a very nice apartment in Paris. So here the financing structure was actually a private bank lending model, whereby they deposited part of their investment portfolio with the lender, who lent them 4.5 million against the purchase price of 5.4. And the mortgage loan came in the form of part interest only and part amortizing mortgage. So there was 2 tranches, one interest only, one amortizing. And that carries a number of tax benefits, as we discussed earlier. But again, the terms were pretty attractive, And although that they were able to transfer an existing investment portfolio, so they didn't have to sell or dispose of any market securities. This is again the QR code where you'll be able to find us, WhatsApp and our site. Get in touch, and first step that we would be very happy to assist you with would be a pre-qualification if you're considering making a move in the French real estate market. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
We'll cut the screen share now, and we'll answer any of your questions. If you're on YouTube or on Zoom, now it's time to answer any questions you have. So feel free to ask them now. Later will be too late. Diana is asking, do you work in other areas or just Paris, Nice, and Lyon? I think that's for Anaïs.
Yes, we actually do have partners everywhere in France, so you can reach us and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you. Diana has another question. If you have no income but have 5 times the value of the home in savings, would that work for borrowing? I understand why financially borrowing makes sense, but can one borrow without income?
The short answer to that is it would be challenging because again the regulation is such that lenders, when underwriting and granting a loan, must ensure that there is a sustainable recurring source of income. So challenging unless there is a significant investment portfolio which perhaps yields some interest. So potentially, but that would take a significant investment portfolio.
We have another question from Jeremy. Do we have to be a resident to buy a property in France?
No, actually, you don't. You don't have to be a resident. You can buy if you live in another country, and that's okay. But we advise you always to check a counselor for the taxes, because that's not our expertise. So this is possible, but you're going to have to see what you have to do with the tax. If you have to declare the place you're going to buy in your own country. I know this is the case in the United States and Canada. So this is just what you'll have to do.
Perfect. We have an anonymous attendee who's asking, how difficult is it to get a loan if one is over the age of 62?
Over the age of 62 would be fine. So 62 would be fine. It's just the terms of the mortgage would be such that it would need to amortize over a 13-year period, presumably. So basically, it would be a 13-year term mortgage. And the monthly payments of this 13-year term would need to be appropriate or stack up with the borrower's income.
We have a question from Jessica. Do French lenders require that you buy a title insurance policy?
Sorry, can you?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you just repeat for me, please? I did not hear.
Do French lenders require that you buy a title insurance?
Okay.
Yeah, so the answer is no. And overall, in the French real estate market, there is no, the concept of title insurance doesn't exist. So it's very different from the US. And one of the reasons why it doesn't exist is because lenders deem that once you hold title, it's very safe. And because, as Anaïs explained earlier, it goes through notarized process. So once you hold title, it is 100% safe. So no title insurance required whatsoever.
Perfect. We have another question from Monica. Are all expenses related to the purchase, closing costs, deductible on a US tax return?
Not sure I understand the question. Is the question related to tax? If it is, I cannot answer. And
yeah,
I again, it's a bit of a specialist questions, but to the best of my knowledge, I do not think there are, unless there is rental income associated with the property. So if for example the property you buy in France is let full time, or as it's often the case, a few months during the year, then there are a number of fees and costs which can be offset from the rental income.
And that is in the French tax.
I mean, US as well.
US as well, okay. Because that is very specific. So that's why we always recommend that you see an advisor, a tax advisor, because this is very specific for each country.
If you go back on Frenchly, we have numerous of webinars with tax, CPA, French CPAs, and we've answered many questions on those topics. So feel free. They're all available on our YouTube channel.
And we're also not legally allowed to answer the tax question, because this is something that only lawyers and jurists has to do. So that's why we cannot always answer the questions.
We got a question from Robin. If you want to read the questions, you can also read them, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
If you go in the Q&A section, so you can read it at the time.
Okay.
If you're buying with a non-romantic partner, are lenders looking for each person's income equally, or the total income of both?
Total income of both. So it would be consolidated income and consolidated outgoings.
To the tax discount. Yeah, another tax question from Alexandre. Can you provide the documentation, principal versus interest, to get tax discount on US side? So we can't really answer that question, or I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, we see it. I do see it, but as we said, maybe that's better to go on another webinar with a tax expert to see what is possible to be done. And I just wanted to say a quick note about what you said, Amaury, about the price, the real estate price in France, because as you saw, we do have a slight drop, but that is because before COVID, we had a big augmentation of the price, because the interest rates were about 1%, if I'm right, Amaury?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And the result was that the price of real estate were very up, and we're just going back to a more balanced and normal market conditions.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And over the long term, what you'll find is that, and that's kind of specific to the French real estate market. I mean, you'll never find peaks and troughs as in certain markets like Dubai, or which makes it a fairly safe asset class in itself. So over the long term, no peaks and troughs, no significant peaks and troughs.
Diana had another question. regarding you remember the question about 5 times the value of the home in saving?
Yes.
She says, so for a retired person, perhaps the
Yes.
best solution is 100% cash. Is that true?
It's well, I mean, it's if yeah, I mean, purchasing cash is always an option if the cash is available. Yes.
Can you take like when you underwrite a mortgage, like retirement income can be used?
Yes, absolutely. So retirement income and drawings from distribution from a 401k or IRA. That's absolutely fine. In addition to dividends from an investment account or social security.
Ilana is asking, what is the current interest rate?
It depends on the number of parameters. The range is between 3.3% and top 4.1%. The shorter the duration, the lower the interest rate typically.
Alexandre is rephrasing his question. I don't know. Can you read that question, Amaury, on your side?
Hang on, let me just typically yes.
So he says typically in the US, cost of interest can be deducted for US taxable income. Can Blue Sky provide reports that show the loan status?
Okay. I get it. So it's a reporting question. So my understanding is that the question is once the mortgage is live, what sort of documentation and reporting do you get on an annual basis, which shows how much interest rates has been paid in the tax year and principal? And so yes, the answer is that you would get an annual statement detailing the breakdown between interest and principal. Yes.
We have another question from Jessica. Can you talk about restrictions on rentals?
About what, sorry?
Restrictions regarding rentals when you invest in France? Is there any?
So yeah, okay. So I'll jump in very quickly. So it's the restrictions wouldn't be applicable throughout the country. It would be driven by the municipality depending on the city. So, for example, in Paris, there are restrictions around short-term lets. So, for example, Airbnb types, Airbnb types lettings are heavily restricted, so you can't just let for your place for 2 or 3 days. There are, however, ways to let your properties furnished for longer period of times, but it needs to be typically 1, 2, or 3 months. But they are you can be compliant and let your apartment furnished in Paris for a few months, not for a few days, basically. Yeah. But again, it would be different in Lyon and Nice, so that's very specific to Paris.
Actually, in Lyon, it's the same, and in the French Riviera, it's going to depend on the city. But what you're gonna have to do if you want to rent as an Airbnb, you're gonna have to declare that you want to rent as an Airbnb to the city, and it's going to depend on what the city allows or not. And this is the structure in France is that if you have a city where you mostly have tourists, it's going to be quite easy to rent as an Airbnb, and it's going to be the case, by example, in Cannes or Saint-Tropez. And when you have cities that are in lack of residential market, and like Paris or Lyon, it's going to be more difficult and almost impossible for today. But as Amaury said, you have ways to do it on another almost similar ways.
I mean, the bottom line is that in all big cities, I mean, be it Lyon or Lille or Paris, Toulouse, I mean, demand exceeds supply. If you look at the rental market, so if you're as a landlord, if you've got a place to rent, you'll have options. It's just that short-term lettings are restricted. Yes.
Perfect. We have another question on YouTube. Oh yeah, is it possible to overpay on a French mortgage?
Yeah, good question. So yes, there are a number of flexibilities. So you can two things you can do. So you can increase your installments typically by up to 30%, and that's free of charge, or reduce them. So if you want to reduce your installments, you can either increase or decrease them. And the other option you have is that you can make full or early partial repayments. Typically, it's free of charge after the first 5 years.
I think another question for Anaïs. Can I sign the documents remotely, or do I need to be physically present?
No, you can do it by an electronic signature, or if you give your power to the notary, so you can do everything from your country.
Yeah, and it's a good point actually. The bank account opening and the mortgage origination process can be managed 100% remotely as well. So since COVID, it can be done 100% remotely.
Yeah.
Anaïs, is it possible to delegate rental management to an agency, and what are the average fees involved?
Yes, of course, it is possible. In France, you're going to have agencies that are specialized on long-term rentals and agencies that are specialized on Airbnb rentals. We don't do either, but we have partners in either way. And for the first one, the average percentage is going to be around 5% of the rent. And for Airbnb, it's going to depend on the service you ask. If you want to have someone who is cleaning the house, welcoming the people arriving, but it's going to be between 10 and 20% of the rent.
We have another almost tax-related question for Anaïs. Do I need to declare my French property in my home country?
Well, that is actually what I said earlier. I know it's the case in the United States and in Canada, but I don't know for every country. So this is really something you're going to have to look for with a tax expert in your country or in France, which is specialized with your country.
And Anaïs, can you come back on what's the average closing cost when you put all the fees involved? What's the average percentage in France right now?
Well, what you have to know is that in France, when you buy a property, you're going to have what we call in France les frais de notaire, which will be the notary fees. But actually, this is not only notary fees, this is the acquisition fees. And this is around 7 to 8% of the price of the property. And for the agency fees, it's going to be between 3 to 5% if this is only a property search service. And if you have also the renovation part, it's going to be more, but we're talking about real estate, so it's going to be 3 to 5.
All right. I think we've answered most questions. I know Amaury just answered by written, but to share the answer with everyone, we have an anonymous attendee who's asking regarding what you just said about rentals, using them as Airbnb. Please confirm that is only an issue in Paris, the Riviera, and other large city, but not smaller markets, correct? I'm thinking of Normandy, Brittany, Lille, Dijon, and Limoges.
I know that in Lille and Dijon, it's going to be a little bit complicated as well. You're going to have a limitation around, I'm not sure, but I have to check. But in Lille and Dijon, you have a limitation to 90 or 120 nights a year. But for the area like Normandy or Brittany, if you're going in a very small city, as Amaury said, you absolutely won't have any limitation.
But with the caveat I would say is that even in places where there are no, I live in near Reims, which is Champagne area, so it's quite touristic. There are no regulations right now around Airbnbs. However, there is nothing. It's a fast-changing market, and basically, when there is tension, there is always a likelihood that the cities will regulate and impose or new restrictions around short-term lettings. It's a question of supply and demand, basically.
Mm-hmm. But what is going to be a new regulation won't apply if you already had your place and you already made the demand to the city.
The license,
if you have the license and the city said you can rent as an Airbnb, even if there is new regulations, it won't apply for your case.
Good to know. Thank you, Anaïs. Thank you, Amaury.
Thank you, Romain, for facilitating.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Yumi says I have to leave now. Yumi, you can leave because it's over. Everything is recorded, so if you missed any of this live, you can find it on Frenchly.us. You can also find it on our YouTube channel. It will be on LinkedIn. It will be also on Facebook in the video section. And it will be online for life, so you can find it. I also shared in the chat the contact of Amaury and Anaïs, also their cell phone number. I will also put it a link in the description of this YouTube video, so feel free to reach out to them. Thank you. My dream is to buy in France and retire there. These people will make your dream come true. So we'll end up with this last note. Thank you, everyone. See you next week for another topic about France.